Karibu, welcome back. Welcome back. I hope that wherever you are nice and warm because let me tell you, this weather, I don't know, it's cold. I know there's a heat wave in the UK at the moment, the irony, but I am cold. I'm feeling really cold. So I hope that you're nice and warm wherever you are. Welcome back to the Transparent Parenting Podcast. I'm getting so good at saying that. I love it. I'm going to try it again. The Transparent Parenting Podcast. And so for everyone that has been writing to me to find out whether I got a nanny, there's been a few people asking based off of I think it was the Mother's Day episode that I did, and my little girl was running all through the studio, wondering, because I didn't have help, and of course she was here with her grandmas. Yes, I did get a nanny. Thank you so much for everyone who's followed up to check on me and referring me. I really appreciate it. For all of you who are watching, thank you so much. We value your feedback. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you guys want to talk about, what you want to see us discussing. You all are parents. We're all in this boat together. We're all growing, learning, unlearning together. So I'm really eager and keen to hear from you. Obviously, subscribe, share, tell a friend about us, and then, let's all hop on this bandwagon together. Today, I'm actually joined in studio with Linda Makatiani, a financial coach who will actually let introduce herself. And this is us just obviously kind of doing a segue from the last episode that we had, which was kids and money. And that was really well received. I thank you so much for your feedback and the questions that are coming in. I will be addressing those on IG. But we thought that we would continue the conversation. Linda actually runs a podcast called Finance for Families, and I'll let her talk a little bit about that and the business that she runs as a financial coach. But Linda, thank you so much and welcome to the Transparent Parenting Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Bella, for having me.
No worries,
It is
Linda.
such an honor to be here.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to see you all the way here from Ukokwenu, your sides. Thank you so much for making the trip out here. I will let you introduce yourself, and as always, I will jump in where I feel you've sold yourself short.
Cool. So, as Bella said, my name is Linda Makatiani. I am a family wealth planner. I'm an investing coach, and I'm a financial literacy trainer. So I have a platform that is called Finance for Families, which is basically a financial literacy platform for families. What we mainly talk about is getting families to have conversations around money together being the keyword here as a family, based on my experience in the corporate world as an investment and brokerage expert. I now use that to be able to guide families, individuals, families, and young, I would say the young members of the family, just to be able to structure wealth. This is from managing money to saving money to investing to protecting the wealth, growing this wealth, passing it on to the next generation. Yeah, all that. I am a mother, and I think that's also why I do Finance for Families. I am very passionate about getting the young ones to understand how to start realizing the value of money from when they're very young age, all the way to them figuring out, how do I make this money for myself?
Yeah.
How do I grow my own money? How do I get to the financial confidence, the financial independence? Yeah, all that.
Yeah, which is actually something we didn't. I'm talking about a generation, which I'm a millennial. We didn't necessarily grow up with.
Yes.
And I think I spoke to you the other day about the fact that, and I started rereading Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And one of the things that he laments about throughout the book is the fact that we are super educated, like in terms of our generation, super, super educated. But when it comes to finances, he says we are like practically illiterate.
Yeah,
like
true.
we don't know what to do with our money. And then, I come down to Kenyan society. When I think about Kenyan space, we are the generation that was raised in terms of, when I think about financial literacy, the conversation evolved around just invest in a shamba. Like you're making
buy
money,
land.
just buy land, or buy a small apartment somewhere, and that's kind of like that's it.
Yeah.
For you, you think, okay, I'm doing good by myself. I'm making money, and so I'm gonna buy a piece of land, and you start to feel like what's the term? We're adulting. You know, I've bought myself a shamba. I've got a title deed. Growing
I'm
up,
good.
I'm good. So you're here to actually break that down for and I love because there's when we initially started having this conversation, there's so much that you got me thinking about that I hadn't, even in as far as dynamics in terms of family relationships. There's the way that we deal with money as, spouse, husband and wife. There's the way in which we deal with money as a family and how we're teaching our kids and how we teach them about money or how they see us spending money. Or what our relationship with money is. But you also got me thinking about, how we parent upwards. Obviously, there's the fact that, we're a generation now that our parents are aging. And so now we're becoming more responsible for a lot of either helping them handle their wealth or plan their wealth for them, or, maybe we are looking after their health. Maybe they didn't plan for retirement or things didn't go the way that they planned. So there's that whole other angle. And then, of course, there's the angle of siblings.
Yes.
Where, as a family, maybe we are looking at what can we invest in. And again, the typical Kenyan thing is, as a family, we've come together, we've bought land uko in Kitale, or I don't know.
We are fine, yes.
And now we're doing big things, and it's like, okay, is that the limit? So there's all these different dynamics, and I can see, why you're doing finance for families. But I wanted to understand your vision, like what birthed this, what brought this about, because my understanding is that you were working in the corporate field for a while and then decided to do this. What brought that on?
Partly my upbringing and partly my current life, because so I grew up in a family where we didn't really talk about money that much. I think the most that we did was just getting to understand. I keep telling my siblings, like, I was born when there was no money.
Yeah.
And then they came when, my parents were a bit
Had
better
already
off.
accumulated wealth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then I think my dad had also set up some bank accounts for them. So they were told, oh, you have a bank account. So he would show them. But they really didn't have any say on anything that happens to that. So I was like, okay. When I was growing up, we really didn't have anything. Like, I didn't have a bank account set up by my parents and all that stuff. I didn't know that, it's good to save with the kids. So I didn't have that exposure, but I got it now seeing him talk about it for them. So when I got married and we had kids, I was like, I want to do it differently.
Yeah.
I want to be able to get my kids to understand from a very young age that whole journey, to start their money journey from even age 1, when maybe all they know is, this is money, I can't eat it, it's a coin, it's not a sweet, this is not paper, this is a note, and all that. But again, based on the fact that when I was growing up, we didn't really talk about money, I wanted to be able to talk about money with my spouse and with my children.
Yeah.
And so based off my experience in the corporate world, I looked at it. When I was leaving employment, to be honest, I wasn't leaving to start off finance for families. I wanted to be there for my kids. I think I told my mom was a teacher. So now I appreciate it. Then I used to think like, oh my God, I wish she had like a 9 to 5 in a corporate world. Because when you're on holiday, she was on holiday.
Yeah.
So we were always...
So the teacher is like, she's at school, she's at home.
Everything. So you're on holiday, but you have chores, you have timetables, all that stuff. But now that I have a family of my own, I kept on telling myself, I loved the fact that she was there with us.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be the same, be there for my kids,
It's very grounding. It's very, I see how my daughter is around me, and the fact that I'm around her at home, the confidence that she has.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just like, my mom's here.
I was like, I need to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And we went around, we had those conversations with my husband over, like, I think 4 years or so, like, this year, this will be it. We'll plan ourselves and I'll leave. And so when I finally left, I left to do something totally different.
Yeah.
But because I had people who were reaching out and asking for financial advice, I said, okay, fine, I can do something about it. Let me monetize it a bit. but I wanted it grounded on family.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because for me, it needs to stem off from my current experiences. How am I handling money with my children? I have a 14-year-old, I have an
Wow.
11-year-old, and I
Yeah.
have a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
I know I look very young.
You do actually. I'm like, what do you mean a
I know,
teenager?
yeah. I tell people we are the same height. I'm like, oh, this is my daughter. They're like, oh, wow.
What?
Yeah. So just based off my experience parenting them.
Yeah, yeah.
And this, I started with them from a very young age.
Yeah.
So the challenges, the wins we had, the milestones we've gone through,
Yeah.
I felt like I want to share that with the parents out there because
Fantastic.
not all families have a parent like me who's been in the finance space,
Yeah.
who understands the difference between saving and investing.
Yeah.
Not every family has someone who, actually does the whole actioning.
Yeah.
Theory, yes, but also actioning all these things we keep being told about.
Yeah.
Or you can go on YouTube and listen and all that stuff. So I wanted to share that journey with everyone else. And I was like, okay, fine. So this is the way to go. Finance for families, it is.
Amazing. I mean, okay, so many questions come to mind, but I wanted to know just in the time, because how long have you been running Finance for Families?
So Finance for Families, this is our 4th year.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And not just the podcast, I mean like your actual consulting.
Yes. So actually the podcast, oh my God. So the podcast, so the actual consulting, the investment coaching bit is 4 years old.
Yeah.
Then the podcast is, I would say this is our 2nd year because I did 2023, I did the first season.
Yeah.
Which was basically all through about communicating with family.
Yeah.
How do you communicate as spouses? How do you communicate as parents to your children, children to your parents, siblings, all that. And then life lifed. So I got a bit overwhelmed with very many things.
Which happens.
Yeah. So I accepted it and I was like, okay, fine. So now we are back. So this is our 2nd year of the podcast.
Yeah.
But in terms of the family wealth planning, the investment coaching, this is our 4th year. This is my 4th year. Yeah.
By the way, just plug here for Linda, you guys need to check out the Finance for Families podcast. Like for me, when I think finances, I'm gonna be real. Like to me, I'm more of those creative, like happy, just jump. Like I'm like boring, boring. But then you're like, I've been watching, and especially I love this series that you're doing or have been doing. The finance for, is it finance family
Financial
finance fix. I love it because it's bite sized, but it's so value packed. Because for me, it's like things I really need to think about. But you guys need to check out her podcast because there's so many topics covered, and I'm like, oh my goodness, you're peeling back the layers because it's like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about this. I hadn't thought about the other. So I love the format in which that you are presenting these topics. They're very engaging. I love those bite-sized ones. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about was in the time that you have been doing it. So you've talked about doing it for the last 4 years. And you also mentioned to me when, in passing the other day that your clients are not just Kenyan clients. Obviously, you're an online, and so you've got overseas clients as well.
Yeah.
In what would you say are the major, like even top 3 challenges that families are going through when it comes to finances?
Oh, wow. I think the main one is the silence that we have when it comes to money-related issues.
What does that mean?
No one really wants to talk about it. So it could be because you're ashamed of where you are financially. It could be because culture as well. Where we always like, there are things we don't talk about. We can come together as a family, we'll have a good time, but maybe one of us is struggling, but they don't feel it's a safe space to be able to share, this is the issue I'm having. Someone, within the family can be able to either point you in the right direction or actually even offer help. So you want to be viewed as we are all okay.
Yeah.
So there's that silence that comes with any money-related issues. I don't want to be seen as a beggar. I don't want to be seen like
dynamic you've just mentioned there, where I don't want to be seen a certain way. Is that like in a sibling type setting, or are you talking husband and wife? You're finding that there's silence between them. In what dynamic? In what direction are you talking?
All. So it could be parents.
Yeah.
Looking at, I don't want to talk about money with my child because I feel like I'm depending on them. I have needs I'm not able to cater for. Yes, granted, maybe I didn't plan for my retirement well enough.
Yeah.
But I don't feel at ease sharing that
Yeah.
with my children.
Yeah.
So you find they're there, maybe they're sick or they're struggling somewhere,
Yeah.
but they don't have those conversations. So they keep silent about the issues they're having. It could be siblings where maybe you have a sibling who's better off.
Yeah.
You have one who's struggling in one way or another, but they feel like if I go to them, they'll feel like, oh, now I'm trying to get to their money. So I'll keep quiet with my problems. It could be spouses where you feel like if it's the husband who's a breadwinner and the wife is there feeling like, okay, if I bring this issue up, I'm like overloading my spouse with so many issues.
Yeah, yeah.
So I will just keep
Be
silent
quiet,
about it.
yeah.
Yeah, it could be just kids as well. You know, we never think about it, but even children,
yeah.
I feel like there's something I need, not I want, there's something I need.
Yeah.
There are children who've planned themselves out really nicely, like, oh, if I get this, it will help me get here and here. But they're looking at maybe their parents and thinking, I don't feel like that comfortable or confident enough to go and approach my parents and say, this is what I want. So you keep silent. And then now you just resentment starts growing because you're thinking, they should know that I need this.
No,
they
they always
should
say
be able
no.
to see that I'm struggling here.
Yeah.
And yet they're not doing anything. They're not saying anything.
My goodness.
Yeah,
So
so
silence
silence
is a
is one.
Yeah.
Culture is another one.
Yeah.
Where if especially in like a couple setup, you have a wife who's grown up maybe in a home where the father is the one who took care of all the bills.
Yeah.
The mother was the homemaker, and that's fine. Maybe the husband was the same, but you never saw your parents discussing about money. So you come together and you're building this life together, but because you've carried that with you, then you're reaching here and you're like, okay, we won't talk about it. Or my expectations are you will handle everything.
Yeah, yeah.
I will make sure we are all safe, well fed, and happy at home, but you provide the finances that we need for it. And I think the other one is lack of financial literacy. And I see that a lot with families. So, and that will build up on the silence because sometimes, yes, I feel like we need to save, but I don't understand the saving options. I don't know what is out there, what products are out there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I will just be quiet. I will let the one who's making the money make all the decisions.
Yeah, let them think
Yeah.
about that. Like too hard basket.
So-
I don't want to.
Yes, or maybe you don't want to share that. You know what? We need to be thinking of 1, 2, 3 things
Yeah.
as our family is growing. But I'm too busy. I don't have time to start investing in a financial coach. I don't have time to start attending that webinar or listening to that podcast. So yeah, that's it. So I think for me, I find those 3 are the main ones. The silence that comes with any money-related issues, the culture, our background, and how they affect the way we relate in our current setups.
Yeah.
And then lack of financial literacy. We grew up, we were never taught about money.
Yeah.
We're not talked to. So we just continue as is.
So much that you've touched on there because you're right. I mean, just even when I think about marriage in itself, beyond money, everybody comes in with their blueprint of
Set
how
of
they were
beliefs,
raised. Yeah.
yes.
So you perceive life through the lens of this is what my parents did, and so you come into marriage with the expectation that it's just going to follow the same formula.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, all our families are different. So somebody has come from a setting where they're seeing dad takes care of the bills, mom runs the house. So you assume that role maybe coming into it. And your husband has come from maybe a family where it's like mom was the one who stewarded all the money. Dad just brought it and said, here. And mom's like, gonna figure. So now so he's coming in with the assumption, hey, why are you not sorting out the finance? And maybe the wife is thinking, why is this guy not handling it all?
Yes.
Like, I'm just gonna, so it's so important to have those conversations. And I actually wanted to ask, with the sessions that you're running, do you have family sessions? Do you have couple sessions? How does it go? Are you finding, and I saw something, I think I told you about this the other day. I saw someone popped up on IG, and it was just this whole notion of, what was it? It was financial
infidelity.
Financial infidelity,
Yes. Oh,
where there's people that are just, and going back to the point on silence, where people are investing. In fact, I saw one comment, and that's why I stopped reading them, because I was just like, this is horrible. To me, it got to a point I was like, this is diabolical. But there was a lady who was like, And she was laughing about it. Her comment there was, oh, my husband thinks we're poor, but in a motivate, like it motivates him to go out and work harder. She, in the meantime, has been making money, but she doesn't let her husband know that she's making that much, and had actually been investing that money. And she's like, my net worth at the moment is about 30 million. And my husband, I was so, like, it made me so sad, because I'm like, why would you do that? And why are you even in a relationship with each other?
yeah.
So she's like, no, it's okay. Let him work hard. It motivates him. I'm like, what is he? Is that your husband or your toy boy? Like, what is that? So, what are you finding? Especially, I guess, I don't know which generation you're finding is mostly sort of in tune with what it is that you're doing and open to what it is that you're doing, and approaching you, and then going, okay, I want to bring in my wife or my husband into this conversation. Or, like I said, the sibling scenario where it's like, hey, we want to manage our family wealth. What are you finding?
So initially it was more of individuals coming
Okay.
and like, okay, so I've seen you on the various social media platforms. And before I used to take it like, oh my God, I look old. But they would say, I know you look like someone who can help me because you look like you're seasoned enough.
Were they
in
older
this
people that
space.
were coming to you? Like our
Yes.
parents, maybe baby boomer type generation, or
No, millennials, 35, between 35 and 40.
Plus, okay.
When, you're hitting 40 and you're like, oh my God, I'm growing old.
to get
I need to put my
organized.
finances in
Yeah,
order.
yeah.
So now you're looking out for someone who looks like they would understand where you are,
Yeah.
and they will not really judge you that much for being, their
Younger.
fourth floor, and yet your finances are all over the place.
Yeah.
But then now, as they would go through the sessions, for the ones who are married, they would be like, let me bring in my husband, or let me bring in my wife,
Yeah.
or we have these teenage kids, or we have these young kids. I don't want them growing thinking that we just provide for them everything. Can we
Yeah.
do just a session where you can help us? Because I talk a lot about, can families just sit and have conversations? And they'll be like, it is so awkward to have these conversations. And I'm like, it's fine. But they
Parents are
become-
finding it awkward
Yes.
to have conversation with
Even
them.
with their kids.
What
'cause
brings
they-
about the
No, because you're thinking, oh, maybe my kids will think we don't have money. Yeah.
okay,
And I always say, there's that much that you can share. You don't have to
Yeah.
share everything.
Everything.
Yes. And
Yeah.
as they grow older, then
Yeah.
you share even more.
Yeah.
But it's just that understanding, like, okay, so how do we involve them? So they need guidance there. So
Yeah.
you'd have sessions where they come in and say, okay, fine, we'll do that. So I get invited to families when they're having get-togethers.
Yeah.
And so it starts off with like a nuclear family. And then they would say, oh, no, we are having this extended family get together. We can spare like an hour. So just come in and get people to start thinking about it. And I was like, this is amazing.
Wow.
So I had not really thought of that. Mine was just like, just get a husband and wife and their kids to understand how to have conversations around money. Look
Yeah.
and see. So have you done any investments? Let's restructure that.
Yeah.
Build it towards long-term wealth. But then they were like, no, just come. Because again, we are having this session with our parents, my siblings. And
That is so good. Like, that is so
Yeah.
progressive. And I actually, it's giving me ideas. I'm like, oh yeah, Linda, maybe I need to have you over for a barbecue.
Yeah,
and like,
so I tell them, just feed me and I'll
because-
be there for 1
yeah,
hour.
throw you some nyama choma or something. Because that is such a good idea, because you all get together as a family.
Yeah.
And now it's not just conversations that we're having in little pockets here and there, but it's like, here's someone who can answer the
Can
tough
answer-
questions,
yeah,
can give us,
exactly.
kind of give us some direction on, hey, have you considered this? This is what you need to look at. And then you're tackling it as a family.
As a family.
So even after, if we're having conversations long after you've had the sessions with us, it's kind of, we're all coming from the same plane level. We all
Yes.
understand what we're talking about.
And it becomes easier. So
Yeah.
it's not come from one family member.
Yeah.
Because at times you
Oh,
have
yeah.
those situations where you're like, that's the person. Every time, if you're the one who keeps calling people and saying, okay, let's talk about money. Every time
Yeah.
someone sees your call, they're like, not again.
Yeah.
But if you having it from, you have an independent person coming in from their expert side, they're able now to say, okay, fine, simplify it for everyone. Because again, you have to understand, not everyone within the family is at the same level of understanding when it comes to financial literacy. So it's just being able to sit there and say, okay, fine, let's have this discussion. They will ask
Amazing.
questions.
Yeah.
And that becomes like a conversation starter for future family meetings. You know, it'll be
Conversations,
like,
yeah.
remember what Linda said? And then now it
But
opens
I'm already
up.
seeing the benefit. Like for me, I'm already like, I need to check our weekends. I need to see when we can all get together
Yeah.
because I think this would be so beneficial and it's important for families to start having that
So
conversation.
it starts like that. So individuals and then now families coming together and we have those sessions. And then as now the kids are growing older and getting independent.
Yeah.
So you have I've had parents now who reach out and say, my child's just gotten their first job. I don't want them moving out because, of course, I want them to be stable enough before they move out. So just have these sessions with them, take them through, getting to understand how to manage their money first,
Yeah.
budget for all those that they feel like they need to do, the moving out and all that. And then now the parent pays for those sessions and I guide them through that.
That is amazing. Like, come on. Like, because that's things we don't think about. And I'm thinking about myself. I've got a toddler. I'm probably thinking, yeah, so cute. Let's save them some money here. Let's get them some little shares here and there. But then you're right. You know, I have to think about, hey, one day she's going to turn 18
yes.
or 21 and it's going to be time to go out into the real world. Okay, fair enough if I've set her up. But if I haven't educated her on what is waiting out there, it'll just be a case of, look at me, booyah, I have a bank account
and we have
full of
oh
money.
my god. And I'll tell you, even just based off my experience when I was in corporate,
Yeah.
I would see a lot of that. I
Yeah.
would have parents who come in and they have nice portfolios, and then once they pass on and their kids now come and the first question they ask you, they're like, yeah, so there's this been told my parent had this portfolio. Is like, yeah. So, you know, you take them through, this is what it is. You're trying to guide them through it. They go like, wait, so you're trying to tell me if I sell all this, this is how much I'm going to get.
Already.
Yeah. So with them, they're just thinking, let me get the money, go, party. A year down
I've just
the
come
line,
into some money.
we are at zero. And this is something
man.
the parent had built. So I always tell parents, please, in as much as you want to pass on financial wealth, the wisdom to be able to grow it and manage it is very important.
The literacy part.
Yeah.
Exactly what you were
Please.
saying, you know,
Yeah.
the silence, stop that. You don't want to be surprising your kids like, oh, when the will is being read, surprise,
like,
you
yeah,
actually
you
have
have.
47 million in an account somewhere. But then again, there was no literacy to go with
Yeah.
it. So the kid just goes, you guys, let's go to
Range
Bali.
Rover. this.
Yeah, let's go to Bali. I'm buying myself a house in Runda. I don't.
And now you're stacking up on liabilities and not
Yeah.
assets, things that will just keep taking money away from you.
Yeah.
We're not thinking about how do I grow this money. Yes, I've been left that 40 million plus.
Yeah.
But can I get this 40 to 70 so that
Yeah.
even the ones who are coming before me get a bit more?
Wow. So, I mean, the natural question for me, because, you know, you're a guru in this space. We kind of touched on it with Mercy last week when we were talking about kids and money. But I'm always curious and keen to hear, you know, what everyone's thoughts are on this. But how soon is too soon to start conversations on money? Number one, and number two, you know, I was watching one of those bites that I love so much. The finance. Is it finance?
Yeah, family financial
It's a
fix.
mouth.
Triple F.
Mouthful. Family finance fix. I love it. They're those bites. I don't know. They go like for 7 minutes or 6 minutes. They're so yummy. But in one of them, you were talking about having age appropriate conversations with your kids. So I imagine, I mean, obviously, because you've got like a 14-year-old, you mentioned an 11-year-old, and then now you've got a 6-year-old. Conversation you're having with a 6-year-old is definitely not the conversation you're having with the 14-year-old. The assumption, though, is that you have already been having conversations with the 14-year-old.
Yeah.
So by the time they're where they're at, man, they're even probably giving you tips on, Mom, this is what I want to do with my money. You need to move some here. You need to do this. So
Very true.
how do you structure it? What are you? I'm not talking about what you're telling families now. I'm sort of just going off of you as a template for us.
Yeah.
How have you structured those conversations with your kids? When did you start having these conversations, and what does it look like as they grow older?
I think for me, I don't know if it's because I was in that space, but for me, it's from when I had my first one and I had her birth certificate. And I was like, now
As soon as you got the birth certificate.
I was like, now we can have an account. My husband didn't understand. He's like, okay.
Like open an account for the baby.
So open an account for the baby,
Yeah.
get that piggy bank, we'll
Yeah.
put money in. But as soon as now they're able to differentiate between this is money and it's not paper.
Yeah.
These are coins. It's not a sweet. It's not
Yeah.
something I can throw around. it's something that is valuable,
Yes.
which is 2 to 3 years. Then, so when I started off with my kids, all of them, they'd always like, every time my husband would come and throw coins there, they would take, because they knew coins go to the piggy bank. So they would take and put there. But as they grow older, you tell them, you don't just take and put there. You have to do something for you to earn that, and so that you can put it in your piggy bank.
Yeah.
And I think I was telling you, with my 6-year-old, he was throwing a tantrum the other day because he'd given me some money and he told me, keep for me this. And I took it and I put it in the piggy bank. And the next morning he asked me, Mommy, where's my 20 bob? And I was like, oh, it's in your piggy bank. And he starts crying. He's like, no, I wanted it in my wallet, not in the piggy bank, because I want to go buy a lollipop. So, and he was very hysterical. And the dad is like, what? I'm like, oh, I put it in the piggy bank and he wanted it in his wallet. So, and he was like, oh, I'm like, yeah, because in the wallet, he can say, Mommy, let's carry the wallet. We go to the store. I buy myself the lollipop. So he knows at 6, he knows if it's in the piggy bank, we have to wait when we're making the trip to the bank, they open, and all that. So for me, it starts very young.
Yeah.
And then age appropriate, definitely, because you also don't want to burden your children with financial problems. So I would look at my 14-year-old. There are things, of course, we will discuss that with her that we'll not discuss with the 11-year-old or nor with the 6-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
But there are things as well we will not discuss with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some level of transparency that we would have, but it has to be age appropriate, because you also have to be very, very sensitive to the fact that they are growing. Mm-hmm. As they're growing older, they're learning more from your actions and not just your words. That's also something else parents we need to understand.
Yeah.
I might be saying, let's save, let's put all this, but they get to see a lot more from my actions. Am I just, every time I get money, I'm buying all this stuff?
Yeah.
So, what I'm not practicing, what I'm preaching,
Yeah.
And all that stuff. But it's also, for me, it's not so much the theory bit where I tell them, but actually doing it with them. So if we are putting money, if I'm getting them to understand that this money has to go into a safe space, then we have the piggy banks, yes. We'll do something good. We'll put coins there. When it's heavy enough, we will go together to the bank. They will open. For the ones who can count, they count for themselves. They see how much money they've been able to put aside. Then we will decide, so what do we do with this? They'll remove some for giving. Take to church. They'll remove some for spending. So they'll go buy a crisp or something. And then the rest we will bank. Yeah. For the older one, she will have her own goals. She'll say, I want to do something. And I'm like, fine. Figure out the jobs that you can do. And as I grow older, it becomes even more. So my 6-year-old will do, every time I'm working from home or the dad is working from home, they'll bring water, all that. Then
make
we'll
sure
get
you're
something.
comfortable.
Yeah, like I brought for you your water. Then, that's like 5 shillings, 10 bob. Yeah, and that's a lot of money for them. My 11-year-old will clear the stuff for the dad, set up the office space and everything, make a little bit of money. My older one is very artistic, so we'll have her do presentations and all that.
Yeah.
Again, she makes a bit of money. It goes. My 11-year-old, my 6-year-old will do more of the piggy banks, money market funds.
Yeah.
But again, something that they can see. I have 1,000. This 1,000, in as much as I've not added anything, it's
still
it's earning. Yeah, it's earned a bit of interest like
That's
that.
amazing.
My older one is now able to track her money even better. So she knows the more I'm able to earn and put in, the more I'm earning in interest.
That is
So
amazing.
it's just, it works like that. But I always say, it's not too late. So if you're listening and you're thinking, oh my God, I have a 16-year-old, I should have done this.
should have started this
I
long.
should have started this. No, you can still start.
Conversation can begin now.
Yes,
It's
it can
never too
begin now.
late.
Yeah, and it gets better.
I was going to ask with that, because you're talking about your 14-year-old being able to track. Obviously, depending on where you've invested, it's, getting statements, seeing how much she's making, and then seeing how it's growing.
Yeah.
But are there even just apps or starter kits or things that you can recommend to parents? It's like, hey, this is a good one to start because your kids, make it fun for them. Because again, finances, depending on who is delivering the lesson. It can be a very boring topic, but if you make it exciting, I mean, for me, I think about some of the lessons now. When I look at my money in a money market, I get really excited. Just even the 2 cents that I made yesterday, I'm like, I'm making
Yeah,
money.
and it's money that you have not. I'm not sweating for. I've not had to do anything.
It. It's just growing.
Yes.
So I love that. And so I wanted to find out whether there's apps or things that you've
Yeah.
found out there that you even recommend to families and say, hey, start your kids on this because they can visibly see what are some of those apps.
So for the really younger kids, it's for most banks,
Yeah.
they have like junior savings accounts. So when you open a junior savings account, you get
Yeah.
a piggy bank. So if you open, I would say for mine, we have with Cooperative Bank, the Jumbo Junior.
Yeah.
So we have the Elephant
Actually, I
piggy
remember
banks.
Jumbo Junior from when
yeah,
I
from
was
yeah,
a kid.
I know, and that's
there was
why
a pink piggy. Was it an elephant?
It's an elephant.
Yeah, it's an elephant. Yeah, I remember
so
that.
we have those.
Yeah.
We have those for the younger ones.
Yeah.
And because we have a family account as well with ABSA, so we
Yeah.
also have the ABSA Junior Eagle account.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why now with those ones for the Jumbo Junior we get good discounts
Yeah.
for when you're paying fees and all that stuff.
Amazing.
For ABSA we get discounts for shows.
Yeah.
The kids
Ups are
get
good
to
with
go.
that, by the way. I've
Yeah,
met a few people
that's
at the
why,
movies who are
yes.
like, "Oh, I'm here courtesy of."
Courtesy of
But they have shouted
good.
you out, Absa, so you can be in touch.
Yeah, so we have those ones. And then as they grow older, now for the money market funds,
Yeah.
you have CIC where you can actually open like a junior money market fund
Oh,
with your
nice.
child's name. On
Nice.
it. Then we have for the older ones where, with them, they want to see how the money is growing
Yeah.
and they have phones.
Yeah.
You have the Chooms app.
Oh.
So with the Chooms app, it's managed like now I have a Chooms account.
Yeah.
I have my daughter's as a savings goal.
Yeah.
So anytime she's done anything for me
Yeah.
or the dad or a relative, because now she promotes her services to
Other people like, hey, look, I'm here to earn money. If you
the
need
other
me
day
to
she
do
did some work
something.
for her aunt and she got paid some good money.
Nice. What kind of work is a 14-year-old doing?
She was digitizing photos. So she did that. She got paid. She
Hey.
does now presentation, beautifying presentations for the dad.
You can get your
so she
kids
gets
to
paid.
work and
do you know, Bella, she got paid to the point where she told me when she's now 13, 14, she's like, I want to change my room. It's looking like, it's so kiddish. So I was
I
like,
love
okay,
this.
fine, do it. So I got for her a quote. I'm like, this is how much it's going to cost. Right now, it's not on
this
our
is
budget.
amazing.
She's like, okay.
I'm working on it.
I'm working on it. And she managed. So she paid for it.
Look at that.
She paid. She
And by the
painted
time
her
she goes out
room.
into the real world, like she
No,
gets
she's
it.
sorted, yeah.
I can't just be spending all my money.
Oh,
I need to
and
budget.
she tracks.
I need to, and if I want to
tracks
buy
her
that
money.
really nice leather couch, this is how I need
can
to
be
work
able to
towards
save,
it.
yes.
Come on.
So on the Chooms app for the
Amazing.
kids, so she has a savings goal. She was like, I need 10,000 for this. So she works, she gets 2,000. We deposit it there. And she's able to track and see. So you are now at 20% of your
love
goal. You're 30%. So every other time she's like, Mommy, let's have a look at it. She's like, okay, now I'm
Yeah.
about, the other day she was telling me I'm about to close school. I need to figure out what to do. I need to get it to, this month. I'm like, good.
This is a teenager saying, I want to know what to do with my time.
Yeah.
When there's other kids that are locked up in their rooms on a tablet or I don't know what else.
She has her
she's
moments.
thinking,
She'll
I
do
need
those.
to, okay. I mean, a teenager is a teenager.
yeah,
But the fact that she's even thinking, hey,
yes.
how am I going to best spend my time? I need to earn money. I
I
want
need
to
to
change my room. So if I want to, I need to.
And you see, her money is not
Hey.
stuck somewhere in an account where tell her, okay, we have to wait to go and get a statement.
Yeah,
she's like, no, it's just on the phone. She looks, she's like,
she can see.
okay, I'm at what? I'm at 3,500. Okay.
And she's got a
so
goal
I
that
need
she's
to do,
working towards.
And she can see, okay, I'm like at 35% now. Yeah, I need to pull up my socks and all that stuff. So
darn Linda,
I think
come
as the
on.
older they grow, the more visual it becomes, the more fun
Yeah.
it is for them.
Yeah.
Because they also need, and please let them, parents, please, in as much as they're saving, please let them also enjoy now because that's
Yeah.
one way to make it fun for them as well.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, they'll be
Is
like,
this-
now I'm saving all this money, I'm putting it aside, and then it's just somewhere I
So
don't
the
even know.
6-year-old might even forget they have that money. It's
yeah,
like,
so
oh yeah.
if you let them, they'll buy a lollipop and
Yeah.
know they think. So he had like 1,200.
Yeah.
We did in June, so we do half yearly. So we went to the bank the other day. We opened the piggy bank and he had 1,000. And for him, 1,000 is a lot of
Can
money.
imagine.
So he was talking of the way, oh my God, Mommy, I can buy for you. I'm like, no.
Oh,
we'll just
bless.
put here so that by December, when we are thinking about buying Christmas presents and all that stuff, you can be able to buy a Christmas present for Mommy, for Daddy, and for your sisters. So he knows, he's like, okay, when we come back again, I will have more than 1,000. I'm like, yeah, we'll have put at least a bit more on it. So even him, he has a goal. It's not that serious a
That
goal,
is, yeah,
but
but come
he's
on.
also working
He's
towards,
starting to
yeah, he's
learn. And
also
as he
working
grows
towards
older, obviously
something.
his goals are going to
Yeah.
become,
And he's taking a bit of it and spending it. He knows, yeah, I put in a lot, but I also got to buy for myself a lollipop
I can
and
imagine how he
crisps and all
feels.
that. And
That
he's like,
sense
oh,
of
yeah.
pride, like, hey,
So
this
he
is
will be
my
looking
money.
forward to, okay, when are we doing the next trip to the bank so I can buy myself another lollipop and
And
crisps?
maybe buy mommy something.
It becomes, yeah, so it becomes fun for them as
Yeah.
well. So they look forward to it. So please
Amazing.
don't just save everything. Yeah, balance.
Make it fun for them. Talk to us real quick about this whole phenomena of parenting upwards. Like I said, our generation is probably the first generation that has really educated parents who raised us,
True.
are living in cities, depending on where you're at. Maybe for whatever reason are maybe they're not retired, maybe they're planning for retirement, and again they're from the school of investing in land. I find there's a lot of people who tend to be asset rich but maybe cash poor, so
yeah.
they've gone into retirement, and depending on what scheme they had, pension is hardly enough to survive on, barely enough to do groceries, and so then you're having to supplement or try and support them, with their living or everyday expenses. Then there's the whole angle of medical insurance in this country, which the older they get, that's a whole other story. We could sit down, but then now you're not just responsible for your family, you're not just responsible for your kids, you're also now responsible for your parents. And then you find that the older they get, sometimes maybe they're ailing, and it can get complicated. Could be chronic illnesses that have them in and out of hospital. And so here are costs outside of, maybe you have a really good portfolio and you've planned really well for yourself, but this is outside of anything that you could ever have thought was coming. And this is coming from them. It's not their fault, it's just life has happened. Maybe they don't have the cover, and so I guess I imagine this is now one of those other scenarios where you're having to pull in a family to have a sit down around, well, how do we best manage our parents? How do we best pull together to help them along? So I wanted to hear a little bit about that, what your experience has been with that, and how do you prepare families that are looking at parenting upward. They want to make the right decisions here. They want to be able to protect their parents' wealth because maybe they have a lump sum retirement, from companies or whatever. They want to best manage that for them. But they also want to be able to cater to any unforeseen emergencies that come up, not just with their families but with their parents. So could you just give us an idea of what your experience has been with that and what your advice would be for most families?
Yeah, I think we are like the sandwich generation where we have our parents looking to us for financial support, and then we also have our children looking up to us for financial provision. So you get stuck. So who comes first? Who gets the chunk of the financial support that you have? But when it comes to parenting upwards, I think what I would say is one, and this is mostly to the older siblings, don't try to do it alone. If you're parenting, it's not solely your responsibility, unless you're an only child. But it's good to have conversations with your parents so you get to understand, so what are their basic expenses? If they do have like a pension, how much is it? And then now you can see, so any deficit, of course, is going to come from you. And you've touched on it. So part of the basic expenses, especially for our parents as they're aging, what gets people to sell off any investments they've done, whether it is me, I'd made investments for my family, would be if I have a family member who's ailing, because medical costs are very expensive. So you get to the point, if we don't have medical cover, then we would have to now start liquidating any investments we've done. So those conversations early enough are very, very important. So we start planning around that. So we're like, okay, yes, we've made investments, but how do we protect these investments from anything that now will require us to liquidate when we are not ready to liquidate, to mature those investments? So it's looking at those expenses. And then if you are in a position where your siblings, then it's coming together and saying, okay, fine, let's create like a plan for how we can support our family. So it would be either prorate it based on our financial capabilities as siblings, or just agree on putting some amount of money
Aside.
aside
Yeah.
for now it becomes like the parents fund, but then
Yeah.
also have those
Contributing
conversations.
to
Yes.
that, maybe monthly, and we know that we have a kitty. If
Yeah,
anything happens.
then it comes
Yeah.
out of the
Yeah.
kitty.
Yeah.
So not just money, but even in terms of like tasks.
Yeah.
So if they need to go to hospital, who's
Responsibilities.
going?
Got you.
Yes,
Yeah.
who's going to be
Yeah.
able to do that?
Yeah.
Because remember, when you're doing that, time, opportunity cost, you would have been
Hey,
somewhere else trying to make
absolutely.
money. So it's agreeing on all those things.
Yeah.
But it's very important not to be able to look at that, and then as well try and see. So for our parents, have they accumulated any wealth? What's the value of this wealth? Can we structure, because that's also protection? So can we structure the succession planning? How is it going to be? Does it go into a trust, or is it being bequeathed to the children?
Wow. And it's
All
confronting
those, yes,
conversations,
it's all those
right?
things. And
'Cause-
then as well, it's if we have land and our parents are ailing, so we are asset rich, we are cash poor.
yeah.
Can we now look into options? Can we maybe sell something so that we are able to provide this? Can we start early enough? Because
Yeah.
especially for like medical covers, if you start early enough, you're able to get lower premiums even as they go on. You are looking at if anything happens to them and they happen to pass on,
Yeah.
we have to look at costs of giving them a decent send off.
Yeah.
So then, can we be able maybe to take up a last expense cover as siblings? Like all those things. But I always say it starts with getting to understand where are our parents,
All right.
what wealth have they accumulated, or what do they have in terms of wealth, and then now how do we build on from there? So how do we come in? Do they have a medical cover? They don't. Can we get them some now? What are their basic expenses? Can we be able to break that down and see how us as their children can come into that that whole thing? So there's a lot that
That's what I was
needs there's a lot that needs unpacking. But the basic thing is when you have these conversations, even the parents would tell you,
Yeah.
so this is what we are looking at.
Yeah.
It could be so medical, it could be if they have any issues, it could be any expenses. They are in the village, they have employees who are helping them because now they're aged, they can't do most. Who pays
Who pays for
those?
that?
Yeah.
I
So
see a lot of
when you
families
have that,
actually starting to clash because again there's a lot of silence. Nobody's actually sitting down to say, hey, let's all sort of, there's an assumption that the eldest is going to look after
is going to
that,
look, or the
and
one
not
who's
necessarily the eldest.
financially well off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what
The
I was
one
going to
who's
say.
financially
The one
well
who
off.
seems to be doing well off. We all
We all
know. I mean,
know.
you drive a Prado, therefore
Yeah.
you surely
So
you should
anytime
be able
mom
to.
is sick, I'm
yeah,
like, mom calls me,
you
but I'm
have
like,
the,
okay, let me call my brother. I'm like, mom is sick. And then
see,
I sit and wait
let's
for you
have
to do. Yeah. But those
it's
conversations need to be open.
they need to be
They need
had
to be,
because
yeah.
it's such a necessary, and it's literally just exactly what you said, dividing the tasks.
Yes.
What happens when, hey, maybe there's like I took her to hospital last time, you need to do this now. Okay, if we're making serious decisions, we all need to come together as a family, talk to the medical team and on all of that.
And if you
But
think about it as well, the more we put our heads together as
Yeah.
a family,
Yeah.
the more ideas
Yeah.
come to be. So I might be thinking, if I'm thinking myself, I'll just be like, okay, maybe they just need 1, 2, 3 things. But the minute I involve my siblings, because we all have different relationships with our parents. So the minute I involve my siblings, we'll be able to sit and say, oh, no, but we need to add this on the list because when I spoke to mom and dad, they mentioned 1, 2, 3. My other sibling will say, oh yeah, also when I did that. So you have like a nice concrete list to work with.
Yeah.
And now you're able to divide any financial contributions, the responsibilities and all that.
How do you help them navigate? Because again, obviously we're talking about different generations here. You've got your old school parents. I know I'm just thinking about a friend now who talked about the fact that she broached this topic with her parents to say, hey, we need to start thinking about this. We need to start talking about money. And, the response was, we come from a very patriarchal society, but, her father's response to her was, oh, you're already trying to put me in the ground. You're already trying to bury me. And, and she's like going, hey, when I say succession planning, it's not about what are you giving me and all of that. It's just that we need to know basic things like how do you want this, and the other sad thing is like when you see people literally sitting on wealth like assets. When we look at their assets, we're like, this is one of the wealthiest people. But when it comes to cash, they're struggling even just to meet their weekly food budget. And so you talk about liquidating. I've seen some families have to quickly sell, and at almost nothing they lose the value on their asset or their house, whether it be land but they lose the money because There was no plan.
There was no plan.
And so now we're desperate. Someone is in ICU, they're paying 500,000 a day for whatever treatments they're getting. And so it's like, we need to sell, and we need to sell quickly. So land that was worth, I don't know, 40 million, now you're selling at 25.
Yeah.
Just get us the money we needed.
Yeah.
You know, so how do you help them navigate where it's culture is an issue?
Yeah, there's a lot of, we have to be very sensitive when it comes to communicating, especially
Yeah.
with our parents about money.
Yeah.
Because we have to be cognizant of the fact that they were brought up in a different generation.
Yeah.
They have a different mindset when it comes to conversations around money. So I always say, as a family, look at two things. There's always, if you have siblings, there's always that one sibling who would be the best person to broach that conversation with them.
There tends to be
And
that
there are
one.
conversations where you will have as siblings,
Yeah.
and there are conversations you'll have as children with your parents. So you need to understand. So which ones do we have in front of our parents, with our
Good.
parents?
So the same thing
And
you would do
then-
with kids.
Yes.
Where it's
So
like,
you
we can have
also
this
have to do it-
conversation as a couple.
Yeah. You know, we get be told that, you know, as our parents are aging, they're becoming our children. And it's true.
And that's what I mean about
Yeah.
parenting upwards, you know,
Yeah,
because
it's true.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to understand these ones we can have with them.
Yeah.
These ones we need to have for them. And when you get to understand now the difference between those two, then now you're able to tackle them as they should. Yeah. But and a conversation starter, apart from getting that one sibling who, you know, parents are very comfortable talking about, the first thing won't be, oh, you're trying to kill me now, and all those. But it's also just to talk to them around what is happening in society. We have about more than 60 billion sitting in unclaimed financial assets. And the reason why it's sitting there is because of parents or family members who were accumulating wealth, but they were not sharing that information with the others.
Are you
So
kidding
because you never know when you will pass on. So
yeah,
as a transit, as you know, as a move on
Oh my
to the
goodness.
next, no one knows these assets. No one knows
maybe your kids
where
are
to
living in
even start.
squalor, but you died a rich man.
Yeah. So it's now just opening it up as a conversation starter. You're like, oh yeah,
Shouldn't
you know,
be taboo.
I saw this in the paper
Yeah.
the other day. It's so sad because this and this happened. And then now, you know, your parents will be like, oh, but that is so mean. Then you're like, Mom, imagine. So now, you know, you
a good
start
idea.
having that conversation.
Yeah.
Because then you've brought it from a point of, hey, we need to be able to do this.
Yeah.
So they won't look at it like, okay, you want to know what I have so you can sell.
Yeah.
But they're like, the money I've worked for, I don't want it to go
to end up unclaimed.
So what can we do? Then you're like, okay, fine. So these are the steps you can take. This is the person we can talk to help us structure it, and like that. But they'll be awkward. I always say they'll be awkward at first, but the more you have them, the better they become.
But you have such an amazing energy about you. I imagine when you're brought in for those family barbecues and events and you talk to people are like, why are we making this so complicated? You have this calming presence about you. Linda, we've talked about so much. Thank you so much for all the nuggets that you've shared. Guys, she has her own podcast and it's called the Finance for Families podcast. I hope I've given you a taste. Finances can actually be really interesting, especially when Linda can show you how to make more so that you are safeguarding your future, you're safeguarding your kids' future, you're safeguarding just the way you do life. But you've shared so many nuggets there and so many things that we need to think about. Hopefully conversation starters for you and your kids, conversation starters for you as a couple, husband, wife, you know, anyone that, you know, really is looking at managing their finances. At least, you know, you've had it from someone that has a little bit of experience. Where can we find you apart from obviously YouTube with the podcast?
Yes.
What other platforms can we find you on, and what are those handles? I will list them on the YouTube description. But where can we find you?
On all platforms,
Yeah.
but mostly I'm very active on Instagram.
Yeah.
So on Instagram, I am on as Linda.Makatiani.
Yeah.
And I'm also on as Finance for Families podcast. I'm on LinkedIn as well,
Yeah.
Linda Makatiani. I'm on TikTok.
Woohoo! Are you doing the challenges as you're teaching people
no,
about
no.
finances?
I'm on
Or-
my daughter says you're on the serious side of TikTok. So I'm on the serious side of TikTok, but as Linda Makatiani.
Yes.
I'm also on YouTube
Yeah.
as Finance for Families.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think those are the main ones. Have I forgot any? I'm on Facebook as well. That's how you know how old I am.
Anyone that
but I'm
still
on
has a
Facebook.
Facebook
Yeah,
account.
I'm on Facebook as
Awesome.
well. Yeah, but I try to share a lot of content on across
Yeah.
the different platforms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No worries. I will actually list all those handles on the Facebook description. Linda, we've learned so much. Like, even just in this session, I know we had a conversation earlier, but already from this session, I'm like, there's a lot that I need to take away. Number one, I'm going to be looking through my calendar of events, trying to get my siblings together and go, hey, we have an expert. Here's someone that, and she can do that for your families. So if you're thinking about having a barbecue, you can invite Linda. She'll come. I'm sure she can send you her services or rates card and let you know, okay, this is, what I'm able to do for you. But we really appreciate it. It's conversations that we need to be having. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Until next time, I want to say it again. Please like, please subscribe, please share, tell a friend about us. And I want to hear from you guys. Please let us know if there are topics that you'd like to see us cover, questions that you might have for guests that have already been on the show, and I can always put you in touch with them. Until next time, I just want you to know, Mom, Dad, Guardian, you are doing a fantastic job. Thank you.
Good to have you back.
Good to have you. Good to be back.
That's a bloop already. I knew it.
You're the one who's needing me.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I'm like,
Yes,
yeah,
no, let's look at each other. It's a conversation
it's a
between us.
conversation.
I just hope my hair usually, sometimes I notice things, I'm like, now why didn't Juma say? But Juma is a guy.
I will
gives
try
me
not
like
to
a
turn
full
too
length.
much because mine, it's only this
Oh
part.
yeah,
that-
you feel like, did she have a stiff neck
I'm
on
like,
the day?
I'm like, yeah, this is my
was
good
up.
side.
You're doing a fantastic job. Thank you. I almost said in Jesus' name again, like you guys, like I'm always in prayer mode. I'm always